Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I am being very generously joined today by Jonathan Ferguson, keeper of, oh God, I don't have your full title memorized like so many people do. This is embarrassing.
Shall I? Yeah, so the ordinary the actual title is just Keeper of Firearms and Artillery. Kind of does what it says on the tin. We'll leave the longer like pop culture title for those people.
For the immediate comment section already.
Yes. And
Uh,
hello to those people, by the way, because some of them will be watching.
sure they will. You wrote a book that Headstamp Publishing published a number of years ago, Thorneycroft SA80. And we thought it would be interesting to check in with some of our authors and just see what sort of stuff has you excited, what you're working on, and like what's going on in the writing world these days. Do you have any cool research sort of work that you're engaged in right now?
Well, I have a recent thing that ties in actually quite well with the Headstamp catalog. And I have a future thing, which I can let's get that out of the way first. So for about 10 years, I've been researching the UK experience of the AR-15. You might have heard of it.
Ah,
Uh, Little known, boring plastic and
never going to go anywhere.
thing. So that on and off, I should hasten to add, it hasn't been 10 years solid. So and I could grab one of those to wave around, I guess. But that's been as a Cold War kid, that's been a real touchstone for me growing up, getting into this subject and pretty well placed here to try and, along with Matthew Moss, who has done research into the same area, and he'll hopefully follow on from me and do a bit more of who used them and where in history. But I am very focused. It's submitted to our friends at Armax for a long article about like where it was adopted the same year as by the British in a small way, the same year that the US Army officially adopted it. Obviously, US forces were already using the thing before that. So that's my current kind of effort. Um, but
I think
so I keep
a lot of people don't realize that the British used the M16. I mean, the AR-15. I mean, they're the same thing.
both, yeah, both. So without baiting more people to have the argument about what's an AR-15 and are they automatic, except to say that yes, a lot of them are. Yeah, they did. So in 1964, there's an official decision, and early 65, they've got 5,000 plus starting to roll in. It's for the jungle. It's for the same purpose as the US adopts the thing. The big divergence there is that the Brits this is just a sideshow. This is for theatre specific. And then, of course, the Special Operations Forces get hold of it and increasingly impressed with it. One of the things that I've hopefully shown, or at least sort of like shown as much as you can with negative evidence, is that this wasn't a case of the SAS get it first and then the Green Army follows suit. That's often the case. It's not here. This was specifically for Malaya, Borneo, 1960. Well, ends up being late 60, well, mid 64 for the first ones, through to 67 when the conflict ends, and then they kind of get repurposed as well, unit specific still, not just tier one as we call them now, but others, Royal Marine Pathfinders, etc. And then there's the M16A1 adopted specifically that family. Some carbines come in somewhere, that's a bit hazier. And then the A2 family with some specific variants there. There are specific markings, that kind of thing. So AR nerds, I wanted to kind of squeeze in two things to this conversation because they kind of illustrate my fairly sort of eclectic approach to firearms history, as which of course you have as well, doing what you do. So that's from 1960s to present, because I kind of take that discussion up to the DeMarco and a bit of mention of the Knights Armament KS1 and stuff in that article. But fairly recently published was an article on this thing, and I don't know if you remember this thing.
Oh, I remember that thing. That's a very
Yeah.
early revolver.
Yep. So I think it was the first time we ever met. And I actually took this trip down memory lane on my own on our channel fairly recently as well. This is not the oldest flintlock. This is, by the way, if you didn't catch it, this is a flintlock revolver. It's not the only one that we have, not the earliest one we have. It's not the earliest one that was ever invented. And I should clarify, it's a flintlock revolver that does this. Ka-chunk.
Oh, oh, it's self-cocking or self-rotating. It's
Yes, that's my term for it. But
that raises a whole question of Sam Colt's patent, doesn't it? Or maybe
kind of, yeah, yeah. So this is how I got. So 2011, you and I were. You asked if there was anything I wanted to talk about on camera, and we sat in that little library in the NFC, and we had a bit of a chat about that thing. And that was, I guess, the second time I'd ever looked at that thing, and then it keeps coming back around to me, which I guess is why I chose it for this conversation. Ben Nicholson. I was going to say roped me in. That sounds negative. I was very happy to be roped in. I roped myself in to what he called Team Collier, and this was 2017. So all these things, by the way, guys, are years in the making.
yeah.
Nearly everything we do that ends up like videos are you can do a burst of concentrated effort and put something out there that's helpful and informative and hopefully entertaining. Written work is years in the making. Sometimes videos are too, but
It's one thing
um,
to put together, make a concise collection of other people's published work. It's a whole different thing to do your own primary research. Yeah.
totally is. Yeah. So that I was kind of trying to get the timeline straight in my head on this because I thought, well, I was looking at these before him. Not really, not significantly. Ben Nicholson, who the primary author of Clockwork Basilisk, another excellent head stamp book, by the way. I'm not just saying that because I ended up contributing to that and to the supporting um, book that went along with that.
Who
He-
invented the wheel gun, which
yes.
seems like
Yeah.
a good question.
He was a real dynamo on that and got a load of people involved, checked, looked under all of the stones around the world for examples of, well, the other thing I have in front of me,
No.
was less advanced in a way.
Hey,
In
look, a Collier.
yeah, yeah, second model Collier. So by this stage, it's hand rotated. So we've actually kind of taken a step back.
Right.
That's the Anley, you cock that. You do have to move the frizzen, the striking steel back into position. But it's effectively self-priming and it's self-rotating, as you said. And it's that same mechanism as Colt uses later on. So it absolutely is, and this is covered in Basilisk and also in the other thing I wrote, who invented the wheelgun. To what extent is Colt kind of aware of this? And then to what extent is he covering it up? Because he knows damn well that that bit of his invention is not unique.
Yeah.
That's the intrigue, the big kind of that might get people to come back and buy one of these books because we can't fully answer that, but I think it's the one of the best places to really get a good picture. Ben especially his book itemizes all of the things that Colt had in his lecture
Right.
and where they were, and then where did they end up? Some of them in his collection.
So people who don't know it, Colt gave a lecture about like the history of repeating firearms in, boy, I should have checked this before we started talking, but what was,
1851.
there we go. And covered a lot of the things that preceded him and kind of obfuscated the ones that might have been a serious patent threat to him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not so much I think that the temptation there, some some people want to go all the way, like go hard, get the boot in on Colt and say he just ripped this stuff off. I don't think there's any good evidence that he actually had hands on this type of mechanism before he came up with his own.
Right.
Um, but I think he tried damn hard to make sure no one found out about it because it would have invalidated his patents and it would have made suing other people to protect his patents impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but it's certainly absolutely plausible, if not likely, that he invented this independently. He may not have been the first person to come up with it, but he did do it independently on his own.
Yeah.
This isn't the internet. How do you find this sort of thing if you aren't a wealthy arms magnate that people have just bring things like this to?
Mm. The other thing, of course, is there wasn't much interest in this, not like there is now. There wouldn't have been people to kind of call him out on that. the stuff that was at the tower, for example. So our earliest self-rotating revolver, which is the earliest self-rotating Colt style handgun revolver pistol in the world, as far as we know,
Mhm.
that was at the Royal United Service Institute, somewhat hidden away from the public eye, or at least anyone that might care enough to connect what he was doing with that thing. Other stuff was at the Tower, not really probably on public display either. So it was easy for him to just like he may have heard about some of these things, but all you got to do is not jump on a ship for a week to go and look at it and go, oh damn, they beat me to it, and no one else is probably going to worry about it at that time.
Yeah. So is there anything specific that you're doing in regards to that particular revolver right now? Like what sort
I
of digging are you doing?
Well, I think I'm done. I think
Okay.
I've with the publication of that article. So that's ended up that was so the pandemic got in the way of that one. So working on looking at it back in 2011 a bit, and then I did an article on the Daft, or probably by John Daft, we're not sure. The earliest one, about 1680, that's on display here in Leeds. But very few people will have read that because it was an auction catalogue article to kind of help promote that and for interest for people who went to that auction. Um, then the two books with you guys, and then this year, finally managed to get my arse back in gear and do the definitive article on this little thing. Trying to loop back in the other stuff. So it was kind of helpful in a way because I'd learned stuff working with Ben and with you guys, and hopefully I was able to tie it up. So I'm referencing think the earlier one. I'm referencing some of the stuff we learned doing Clockwork, Basilisk, and everything. So I'm kind of trying to draw a line under this by speaking to you about it. I shouldn't ever have to come back and write more about it or learn any more about it. It should be done. But I said that a couple of times before with this thing. It keeps cropping up. I found one that was well, there's one at the Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford that was stolen and replaced with a fake, which
Oh,
which was fun.
I intrigue.
Yeah, before my time, I hasten to add, and I was nowhere near it at the time. You can't prove anything.
And it's definitely not in your apartment.
But that's almost the pair to this one.
Okay.
So it's almost identical, but not quite. It's missing the lock. Um, got recovered, and so now they have the fake that the forger made to try and get away with. That gives you an idea of the lack of serious interest from researchers on this type of antique, this type of technology, that they could have got away with that. You know, they thought they could get away with a really crude copy of this thing. And then there was another one that cropped back up a bit later on. This delayed that main bit of research I was doing until after Basilisk was done. At Brighton Museum down on the south coast, there was another like unfinished one very close to this, and I think that's a 19th century fake, but not made to replace a real one. So I mean, who knows? And then there was another one that Ben, like the more, as you know from your own work, the longer something goes on, the more stuff pops up that makes it go longer. And
Yeah.
at some point, you've got to draw a line and do it. But I've
Yeah.
been really lucky to have four bites of the cherry here, two articles and two books or contributions, I should say, not the main author by any means on that. But so I think I'm done there. Current focus is just tidying up and addressing any peer review comments on the AR-15 thing, but it kind of shows you how eclectic I like to be, that I bounce from like 17th and 18th century. In this case, this is about 1730, by the way. So a good couple of generations on from the earliest one that we know,
Right.
um, all the way up to modern technology that's still in use, but is also historic. You know, the AR is a curio and relic in the States now, or the original M16 is.
Yep.
Um, and I just find it like I think I'm the right kind of vintage to find that historic and not think it's too modern. You know, a lot of guys that are into this antique stuff don't really appreciate the modern stuff, or they see
Oh,
it.
brass cartridges. I don't know about that. Might not take off.
Yeah, and that's part of what I see my role as here. You know, trying to bridge the gap. You do it as well.
Yeah.
Um, this is all firearms history, and in the wider arms and armor subject that we we work within,
Mhm.
it's all the same stuff, and it's just a matter of time. Apart from the kind of hand finishing, hand crafting thing, there's an argument there that says applied art for the really nice old stuff, and design and technology for the modern stuff, I guess.
So your Revolver article, is that also coming in Armax or is that going to be published somewhere else?
Yes, so that one is out already. Oh no, sorry. That is not true. That one is in Arms and Armor. So that's the Royal Armouries Journal.
Okay.
And that one is out online. And if you subscribe, you will have had a hard copy of that fairly recently, I think. I hope.
Okay.
And then the AR article, perhaps more to come on that, but it probably won't be from me. It's as definitive as I'll be able to make it. That's going to be in Armax. And who knows, I might get lured back into the head stamp mark as well at some point.
We would love to have you back for another big project if you're interested. Oh,
It's just a matter of time, really.
well, I will include links down in the description for everyone to actually, frankly, all of this stuff that we've been talking about, but especially the Revolver article and Armax, the M16 article when it comes out. Cool.
Yeah,
Thank you for taking the time, Jonathan. I really appreciate it.
hopefully that one does make it all the way through peer review.
I suspect it will. I think you know how to do this.
Thanks, Ian.
All right. Talk to you guys later.